church in England is so boring.
Right.
And then everyone sings a...
Let the church say amen.
No. Buckle up for safety.
I'm an actor, a writer, and a former athlete on a mission to build God's kingdom unapologetically, giving all the glory to Jesus. Join me on Faithful Heights podcast as we sit down with influential figures who go beyond the spotlight and fame to acknowledge the true icon who is Jesus Christ. Get ready for authentic testimonies and unfiltered faith on Faithful Heights.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Faithful Heights podcast. We have a great guest today. I'm your host, creator of the show, Yinka Ade, produced by God, directed by Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit. You know what I'm saying? Thank you. Bars. God gave me this wonderful idea, put it off for a couple years, and we've been rolling. And today we have another great guest, a special guest. Rebecca Mader, born and raised in the UK, best known for her roles as Charlotte Lewis in ABC's Lost, right? Mm-hmm. And Zelina, the Wicked Witch of the West on ABC Once Upon a Time, and many more. I could go on, but we would be here for an hour if I talked about all her shows. Welcome, Rebecca Mader. How you doing?
Yay!
Yes.
Yes. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. I'm so blessed and beyond humble to have you here. I mean, I know this, you had to take time out your schedule, busy schedule. So thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
God is moving and it's Faithful Heights. So we're going to talk about all things faith, all things God as it pertains to Rebecca.
Yay. Congratulations on your new podcast, by the way.
Thank you so much.
Big deal.
I really appreciate it. And, here we are and it's growing. Please remember to like, subscribe, share, follow everything.
All the buttons. Press them all.
All the buttons. just press them all.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump into it. So first, let's share your personal journey and how you got into acting. What was that?
Oof, 2 hours later. Yeah. Well, back in the day, when I was little, I would do school plays and stuff like that. And I've always had a bit of a sort of loud, outgoing silliness to me, but I didn't really know sort of what to do with it as a kid. And then I was studying drama at school. And then I was going to think about going to college, to university, as we say in the UK, but I didn't really have a lot of money saved up to go. And then at the time, my dad's mum, my nana, Nanny Harlow was her name, behind my back put my photo into a local beauty competition in the local rag. So it's Cambridge Evening News back in the 90s behind my back. And I ended up getting down to the last 3 and then I found out what had happened. And I was devastated and embarrassed. And I ended up coming second and I ended up getting a modeling agency out of it, which was not something I wanted to pursue at all. I wanted to, be an actress or whatever. And I was like, I'll do it for a bit because I was going to take a gap year anyway, which a lot of people do in Europe. You finish school and then you spend that year traveling and finding yourself, which I think is cool because then when people do go to uni, it's a decision that they've made, not just going into another year of school to get drunk and make a mess of it. People think, okay, that's what's out there, but I need to go get that if I want that. So it makes it sort of more intentional. Yeah. So I thought, I'll do that for a bit. It'll be great. And then I just started gigging right away as a model. And all my friends were at uni and had £2 to buy 1 pint. And I'm on a helicopter in St. Moritz going, do I want to go? So I ended up just sort of doing it. And I got, I was doing well as a model, but it was still on my heart to become an actress. And I was like, I don't know, I've got a feeling that it's going to happen for me in America and I can kind of bypass the whole, let's get £100,000 in debt, by going to university. I feel like maybe if I just go to America, I'll figure it out. And it was just a feeling inside of me that just felt that was just how it was going to happen. And then my grandmother, who had put my photo into that competition, called me one day and she said, I think you're going to go to America. And I went, I do too, Nanny. It's funny you say that. And she said, I just had a dream about it. I said, I've had a dream about it too. And she said, I had a dream that you went to New York and you became an actress and then you did lots of comedy films like Goldie Hawn because you're silly just like her. And I went, huh. So I kept asking.
Shout out to grandmother with the Holy Ghost vibes.
Yes,
really?
She definitely had some psychic kind of, she would have some foreseeable moments, which was really cool. And I was like, oh, I don't know. And like, I kept asking my modeling agency at the time, like, I really want to go to New York. And they're like, oh, your portfolio's not ready. Go to Germany. And then something would go pear-shaped and wrong. And then like I fell over and cut my face. Or I'm like, I think I'm ready to go to America now. Because it was with the intent of becoming an actress. And they're like, no, your portfolio's not ready. Go to Sydney. And then that went wrong. I'm like, why am I listening to other people when I have this feeling that I should be going to New York? And my grandmother had that feeling too. So I ended up on my own. I just made photocopies of my modeling portfolio. I made like 4 copies and I sent them to my top 4 picks in New York and just prayed and said, whichever's meant to be is meant to be. And one came back and said, let's do it. So I bought a one-way ticket to the States and I flew to America on the 22nd of November, 1998 by myself, with all my clothes and my makeup and a one-way ticket. Wow. And I'm like, that's it. I'm going to figure out how to become an actress while I'm here, okay? And so many people, like at school or whatever, like people from my old, I use the term lightly, friends from Cambridge, like, see you in a couple of weeks.
Wow.
I'm still here.
Right.
20, how many years later. And,
wow.
And that's kind of how it happened. And the reason I got into acting, or how I got into acting, is in the States, you need to do a TV commercial. When they book a model to do a TV commercial like Pantene or whatever, they have to book you through a TV agency, whereas in Europe, they just book you through a modeling agency. Yeah. So that's how a lot of models can do that crossover in the States, is because you have to have an American theatrical agent to even just fling your hair on TV. So that was kind of like my backdoor into a real bona fide actual acting agency.
Wow.
It was like I kind of started being repped by them commercially, and I'm like, hey, BT Dubs, I can actually act. And they're like, okay.
Right.
You and everyone else, sweet cheeks, Oh,
wow.
But then I was like, no, I really can. I promise you. So I shot a black and white Days of Yore Kids headshot, and then I started going out, and then I ended up booking a couple of gigs, and I had the wrong visa and I lost them. But that was kind of how I got in. So basically, modeling ended up being a huge blessing because it was my backdoor in, it was my shoe in into the industry.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for I didn't enjoy modeling, but if I hadn't have done it, then I don't know kind of how it would have happened, because I couldn't go to university really anyway. I couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
So I my whole life would have turned out completely differently,
Oh, wow. And you've played a lot of dark characters, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Was that good? Was that good?
Goodbye, job security. Don't go out for the same roles as me. All right, mate. Coming up later.
Right, coming up later. Later,
mate, innit?
Right. So, what or where was a turning point where you incorporated like faith and like belief in God? And has that always been instilled in you, or has that come at a later point in life?
I didn't grow up with God being mentioned in my life particularly. It just was not in my experience. It really wasn't until I'd moved to LA. So I moved to New York in 1998, and then I got my first big break, as you call it, because I was modeling and acting for 6 years. So I was doing everything all at once, like commercials and voiceover and print and this and that. And then I'd go from like a Target in-store print job to then the next day working with Meryl Streep on Devil Wears Prada, and then the next day doing like a shoe campaign for Payless. Like I was, really, really all over the place. But so my big break was in 2006. I booked like my first ever series regular role, as they call it. And that was a show on Fox that Jerry Bruckheimer produced, and I was the female lead. I felt totally out of my depth. I was young. I was in my late 20s. I'm like, are you sure you want me? I don't know what I'm doing. I didn't know what on earth I was talking about, because the dialogue was like American law.
Yeah.
I didn't understand what I was doing, but it was a huge blessing. But that brought me out to LA, and then I was just an actress. And there was a friend of mine who is a Christian. She's one of my best friends to this day, called Selena Lockett. I love you, Selena. Mm-hmm. She ran base camp on my show, and she and I became best friends. We lived together for a while, and she went to church. And I always was very much like, oosh, because church in England is so boring. It's so boring. I've never had a good time.
Really?
Well, once I went to one, but that was like more of like the more modern hip churches, but like the churches where you're sitting in a church that was built in like the 1300s. First of all, they're really cold.
right.
And then everyone sings a... No.
Yeah.
Like, even
Right.
God is bored. Like, I
Right.
cannot. Like, no. So I didn't get it. I thought that's what Christianity or God or Jesus or anything was just cold and boring and lots of old white people being cold and boring.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was living with my mate, I was having a rough time. I don't know, I just feeling like depressed or whatever. And my show that had brought me out to LA had been cancelled. And I was, it was right before I got lost around that time. And I didn't think in terms of faith, like, I'm just going to have faith that I'll get something else. I'm like, I guess I'm done then. I guess I'm going back to England, just like everybody said. Because there's all these naysayers like clipping at my heels all this time. Do you know what I mean? Like from getting out to America, I just was... There felt like, I'm sure nobody was thinking about me at all at this point, or I wonder if Bex made it at this point. But in my head, I'm like, I have to prove them wrong.
Right.
And I called them the naysayers, like all these people that like kind of wanted me to fail. I had to like prove them wrong. And she said, do you want to come to church with me? And my instinct was like, ew, not really. But I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do something different. And it was a more modern church here in LA. I think it's called Oasis. And I had never been in a room with live praise and worship before, the full band, people singing harmonies, and just like it blew my socks off. I'm like, this is amazing. And they did like 6 tunes. I didn't want it to end. And for me, really, it was always the praise and worship that brings me to church. Like if a church has got like an amazing team, like a praise and worship team, like, yes, please.
So you went from "Let the church say amen" to what? What was the new tune?
And I get an amen. Like there was like a gospel vibe to it. I was just like,
there you go.
Woo! Like I felt it was like being at the club but sober.
Yeah.
And the high was better, than the olden days of when I was like drunk at the club. I'm like, this is a whole different vibe. This feels like the Holy Spirit felt like he was in the room and everybody was being kind and saying hello. And I was like, this is different. So that was kind of like where my relationship kind of with God started. And that's when I started like thinking about, meditating in the morning and starting to ask for actually what I wanted and just sort of looking at things with a bigger picture outside of myself.
Nice.
And that was like a turning point for me. And I think it's been my saving grace in my career because, as you know, as an actor, there are so many time. There's so much downtime and downturns in this career, and the lows are low and the highs are high. But like to have a belief in something outside of yourself, for me personally, really keeps me going. Because the job is the easy bit as an actor. That's the bit where someone's going, can I get you anything?
Exactly.
And I'm like,
right.
Is there any cheese at Crafty?
Right.
Yes, I would love a blanket for my legs. Like, what? That's not working. That's called being taken care of. It's the getting the job that's the job.
Yes.
So yeah, it's helped me through my downtimes for sure.
That's amazing. And so do you have a kind of an anchor scripture that just keeps you grounded, or
I don't have an anchor scripture. I think I'm more of a person that I have my anchor songs. I haven't made a playlist for this podcast. I would have done if I didn't have small children. Like I would have like given a list of my greatest hits, and maybe I can do that separately on something else. But like the music for me is what is so healing for me. And depending on what mood, I mean, I always listen to praise and worship or gospel music in my car when I'm by myself. It's like my thing to do. Like my car has become my office / recording studio / church.
Right.
Because I'm on the road a lot since I moved a little bit out of LA.
Yeah.
So I get the right song on and like I'm singing along, or I'm smashing the dashboard to Kirk Franklin, like, look over your shoulder, see how far you have. I'm like, I have.
Right,
Thank you, Kirk.
Right. No, that's amazing.
So it's my songs for me, I'm not, unfortunately, like part of me, like, remember I called you before I did this podcast? I'm like, I don't know if I should do this podcast. I don't think I'm Christian enough. I don't think I'm spiritual enough. I don't think I know it. I can't quote Bible verses.
Yeah. And we talked about that because it's funny you say that because, every day it's like I'm growing and getting better myself. So I was like, no, Rebecca, me too. Like I'm growing every day. Like you're perfect for this podcast because walking in faith and just trying every day. And like, that's the most important part of it. And so what has like your prayer life been like? And now having your kids, do you incorporate like prayer as a family? And what is that like?
I mean, it's really mostly, it's me and God and me and me and me and him. I haven't found a church down by since I moved. I haven't found one that feels like it's my vibe.
Right.
I went to one in Orange County, and it was not LA. And I thought it was a big one, and I looked on the website, and it looked like there was like the full. I'm always looking like at the band, like is there more than one singer? Like, are they going to take me to church, literally?
Yes,
And this one looked like it might be it. And I took the kids and I put them in like the kindergarten creche daycare thing they have for the kids. I'm like, wait, I get to dance to praise and worship and get a break for the kids and have a coffee, winning for $0. I mean, I'll give some money in the tide, but I was like, this is going to be so much fun. And one of my favorite songs came on. I'm like, oh yes. And I jumped up and nobody else got up. And I'm like, huh. And everyone, it had the very British vibe. Like everyone just sort of sitting there. Nobody was throwing their arms up. Like nobody was like talking to God. And I'm like, oh, because I need the energy, you know, like of the people that are there to like enjoy it and have a good time and praise.
Absolutely.
Not
absolutely.
So the energy was, I haven't found my place. Honestly, when I'm by myself, I can get there.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm like walking or running or driving to my praise and worship music, I can get there. But, you know, like I haven't really incorporated my kids that much to it. I do play it when the kids are in the car. You know, I have them do like affirmations, you know,
nice.
I am blessed.
Yeah.
And what was your biggest blessing of the day? Like I asked them, you know, or who were they kind to today at school? Like I'm trying to sort of instill those values in them, you know?
Being in the industry, you've had some really strong roles, right? And so even like playing a witch, do you feel like you've had to like channel a certain type of energy, or how has that process been, right? Because you're somebody who, you know, is seeking God, and then you got to go on set, even though you're super funny.
Be the devil.
Right. And then you got to go play a witch. So like, how has that experience been for you? Like, and you've been doing it for how many seasons now?
Well, I was on Once Upon a Time for about 5.5 years.
Okay.
Playing someone of the devil.
right.
Which to me just was like comical,
yeah,
you know?
Right.
And kind of fun, because playing someone so viscerally different to who you are at least is interesting. You know, like whereas now I'm like jonesing to play someone just good and kind. It's those opportunities don't really come my way. And I think also being in the States too, a lot of it has to do with being British. Like, and you see like Bond movies, like the villains either like Russian, like come to kill your children, or British, like, oh, you're going to die, dear. Like, I think a lot of it is that. Maybe it's the ice blue eyes, I don't know. But yeah, like I always, and not even just Once Upon a Time, I typically throughout my 24-year, oh my God, where has the time gone? Most of my career, I have been the villain, the baddie. Or even if I'm not necessarily the villain, I always play people that are incredibly strong.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it has to do with like what I look like, you know, because even when I was a model, you know, friends of mine that were the same age that were cute, you know, like had like blonde hair or like, you know, just like sweeter looking, you know, they were doing like modeling jobs in Spain and Ibiza and like in a bikini, and I'm like holding logs, like like the crazy old witch. Like it's always been my story. Ever since I was 20, I've always looked like a sophisticated woman, you know? So I think it's just all part and parcel of the vibe, you know what I mean?
Do you get approached to do any like Christian type films at all?
I would, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because now there's like channels that have them and making those kind of movies and stuff like that. Yeah. What is that network called? Because I feel like didn't they spin a, what is it?
Peerflix, yes. Peerflix has amazing content, and they actually, I think they have a bigger budget now for Christian films, you know. And so I always wonder that, because I know even when I talk to my reps, it's like I tell them I want to kind of lean more in this direction because there's content now, and then also creating content as well. So yeah, I'm always like wondering what that process is like. If you weren't pursuing acting right now, what profession do you think you would be in?
Momming.
A mother.
I'm a mom. I am a mom. I mean, there are other things I do want to do, but I'm walking a fine line right now, because
I feel like you'd be in comedy for like be a comedian.
I definitely want to do comedy.
Yeah.
I definitely want to do comedy. I mean, obviously my number one role is being a mum. But I'm ready to go back to work now, you know? And I feel like now that they're a little bit older, I can find that balance of They're both going to be in school soon full time. So it's like I feel able to kind of put the focus a little bit back more on myself.
Nice.
Because the beginning years in motherhood are really intense. And yes, I could have hired a full-time nanny. But I'm like, well, what was the point though? I mean, no judgment, no judgment. But just for me personally, I didn't have kids at 21.
Yeah.
And I had this amazing career before I chose to say, okay, it's either now or never. And so now that I've done it, I wanted the beginning to be so intentional. And I've really, really intentionally wanted to put as much attention on them as possible, whilst also, like trying to lose the baby weight and trying to look Hollywood ready again. Like it was a lot, and what's that? Oh yeah, a pandemic. Brilliant. Pandemic's over. You finally went back to work. Guess what? Strike. So it's just been like beep boop beep boop, like
Lord,
a weird. It's been a weird 5 years between becoming a mum, the world closing down, having another kid.
Yeah.
And then going back to work for one job, and then the industry closed. I'm like, am I being punked? Like, am I in the upside down? Is everybody else still in the other world in 2019? And then I did the wrong choose your own adventure, or got drugged at the club, and I ended up in this whole other reality. Because then as an actor, you think like every job is your last, don't you?
Yeah.
It's like that insecurity of like, did I mess up my career because I became a mum? But I always wanted to be a mum. Having a family is more important. And when I'm in a hospice dying, my career's not going to hold me in my life as I'm doing my death rattle. My kids are going to hold me. So it's like, it's such a weird thing. Like it's different for women too. Like when I was on Once Upon a Time, everybody had kids, right? But it was like mostly the guys. They're the next day back on set. But like women can't do that. You can't like pop one out and be like rolling the next day. You have to take time. So I've taken the time. I've given them what they needed to set them up for success in the beginning. So you're right. What is next? I would happily do another drama, but I would also really like to prove that I'm funny.
Yeah, definitely.
And I've done like 2 or 3 comedies, but they never ended up airing or got cancelled for different reasons. So they've all kind of been like non-starters.
Yeah.
So I would really like to make people laugh for a living because it's my favorite thing to do.
I think. Yeah,
I love making people
do
laugh.
that very well. Surprisingly, I was surprised.
Why is it surprising? It's because of how I look.
No,
which is why I always play a villain, because you're like, she looks like she's probably mean.
No. When I looked up, your stuff, like I saw the serious roles, and then we were talking through text, and then when I actually got to talk to you on the phone, I was like, yeah, she's hilarious. So now being in the industry, and as long as you've been in the industry, do you feel like there's you have to hide like your faith in Jesus?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I don't really talk about the fact that I believe in God, really. It's weird. I guess is it a secret, or why am I not talking about it? I don't know. Maybe because I don't even like necessarily consider myself a religious person. I guess because I don't go to church every Sunday.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely a spiritual person, and I do believe in God, and I do believe that Jesus was there and he had a lot of amazing things to say and teach us, and a lot of the scriptures are incredibly powerful and have meaning to me, but it isn't something I walk around sharing. And I'm like, well, then why is that? And what's the fear in that? Am I worried about being blacklisted for believing in God? Like, what is going on? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
I don't know if it's just not because it's been around my personal thing and I'm not around other people like, you should scream it from the rooftops or you should share. But I do individually. But I think I'm realizing now as I'm older and I'm a mum, I'm like, how much of my real life am I actually sharing? And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that I've worked for Mickey Mouse most of my career. Like most of the stuff I've done has been on ABC actually, which is just a coincidence.
Yeah.
And I think, being on a Disney show for so long, because I can swear a lot, and I've got a little bit of a potty mouth. So I also was very careful. I'm like, I don't want to offend anybody, right? I'm on a Disney show. There are children watching. So I'm always very respectful and very cognizant of my audience. But I think in a way that kind of like censored me a little bit because what I find funny on social media, the kind of gifs and memes that I'm sharing to my actual friends is not necessarily the image that I've been kind of putting out there. And maybe that's one of the reasons people don't know I'm funny, because I'm sort of presenting this sort of put together, attractive white woman, I've done serious roles vibe, when essentially that's not really fully who I am at all.
Yeah. Do you feel like in terms of like faith and religion, do you feel like it's promoted more in the UK or more like here?
No.
It's
I would say it's more here.
It's more here.
I think people, if somebody's like has a love for God, I feel like they're freer to sort of share it in America.
Okay.
But I think that's true of most things, because America is more of a melting pot. And I think there's more of a freedom of expression for me personally in this country. You know, I feel like there's a lot of judgment in the UK, and people go, what? Ugh.
Right.
Because even like in terms of like mental health, like you couldn't even talk about mental health in the UK until recently. I mean, England is always like a little bit further behind the times, but it always ends up catching up to America, because America and the UK are almost like brother and sister. But, you know, even when I first moved to America, if I was talking about anything that remotely seemed on petit peu self-help or whatever, go, oh, you've been in America too long. Oh, do you watch Oprah every day? You know, it was more, they'd just sort of take the piss. So I feel like it's easier to kind of say, hey, I'm so-and-so and this is what I believe. I feel like there's more freedom of expression in this country, because in England it's very much, people like to take the piss out of people a lot and like put them down and make fun of people a lot. That's kind of like how we banter and how we, you know, get along, is like just putting each other down and taking the piss.
Yeah, I've heard that before. You know, lots of family in London, and Can you share a time where, you know, you've in your life or in your career where you felt like your faith in God has carried you through?
There's a night, an evening that pops to mind in 2007. It was right before I booked Lost, and my funds were gone.
Yeah, I know. We know
They were thin. I think I had it was about $500 left to my name, and I hadn't worked in a long time. I'm like, this is it. All right, I'll go back down the pub in England, and people go, oh, I told you. It wasn't 2 weeks, but it was 2 years, you know. I was like, oh, here we go. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to put some music on. I'm going to walk my new dog, and I'm just going to go and talk to God about it. And then I went on this walk around my neighborhood, and I was listening to gospel music, and I just kept saying, I give up. Not I give up, but like I surrender.
I surrender, yeah.
Your will be done. I hereby get out of your way. Like, I've done it all. I've showed up. I'm getting up every morning. I'm doing the thing. I'm learning my lines. I'm working really hard. I'm going to the right places. I'm, you know, walking the walk. It was like a proclamation, a declamation. I officially get out of your way. And I just kept walking the block and singing the songs and talking to God and praying and praying and praying. I walked back into my lobby. I'll never forget. And I was like, oh, I haven't checked my mailbox in ages. I got my little Shih Tzu, and I opened the mailbox, and there was a residual in there from SAG-AFTRA. And residuals, like, you know, when you get money for things that have been shown elsewhere. And like the year that I had just done Devil Wears Prada, and it had been out for a while, and it was my first residual check. I didn't even know they were coming. I wasn't even expecting it. And I opened it up, and I had $500 to my name, and it was a check for $35,000.
Wow.
And I just went, and I couldn't breathe. Like, I fell backwards and I slid down the wall. It was like a rom-com. And I'm holding this like Shih Tzu. I'm newly divorced, and I've got this check, and I'm like, we're gonna be okay. She's like licking my salty tears, like, we're gonna be okay. Right. And it was a reset. And no, we do not get checks like that all the time, people. As residuals, we do not at all. I know you all think we live in gold houses. I do not. That was a big deal, and that kept me going for a long time. I mean, that kept me going, and then
for sure,
not long after that, that's when I booked Lost. But it was after this like 35-minute conversation with God, and I'm like, maybe there's something to this. Because he was like, all right, you need some proof.
Exactly.
Don't go back to England. I've got more in store for you. And then not long after, like 2-3 weeks after that, I booked Lost.
Wow.
And moved to Hawaii.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It doesn't always happen like that. But those are magical moments that kind of go, okay.
Right. I mean, it's you know, we call it that Jesus wink when you ask and you surrender. Right. And then he shows you that he's real. So you've had so many highs and so many lows being in this career. We know it's a lot of them. What would you tell a younger Rebecca coming in this career, starting out?
Buckle up for safety.
Buckle up. Yeah.
I mean, but you know, people go, oh, acting, it's so hard, isn't it? And I get kind of defensive almost for acting, it's not like my ego, because I thought, is that my ego getting like, no, it's not, I've done all right. I mean, it wasn't the ego, but it's almost like, no. And I think it's because I love it so much. Yes, The downtimes can be rough in the jungle. And yes, there are times when I've been so poor. I was homeless in 2013. That's not that long ago.
Yeah.
You know, my dog was on one sofa. I was on another. Yeah. I was $70,000 in debt. There was times in New York where I, would count my pennies and go get $1 slice at St. Mark's and nibble it really slowly on my stoop. And I'd have to walk to my pilot auditions back in the day because I couldn't even afford the subway. Yes, it's been rough, but it's like, I think because it's just so good when you're doing it, I can't imagine doing anything else. And it's like, it always outweighs the bad. Because once I'm back, it's almost like you forget how difficult the difficult times were, because when I'm doing it, it feels so right.
Yeah.
And that I'm home and this is exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah. No, that's very, I know all about the dollar slices. I had $2.50 to my name, give me 2 slices and a soda and just walk the block. I remember having to walk from like 148th all the way down to my manager's office at 59th because I couldn't get on the train.
Pit stains.
Yeah,
like
it's just like you walking and like, thank God, like New York has so much scenery.
Yeah,
but
at least it's an interesting walk.
It's amazing. And I would just remember like just praying so much during that walk. And I was like, I'd just be like, all right, God, like this, I know you have more in store for me. I know there's more in store for me. So like, yeah, New York is that nostalgic place.
It's a good place to start. I remember back in the day when I first started acting, because pilot season obviously starts in January and it's colder than at the Atlantic, the Antarctica. So I would go, sometimes I'd walk all the way there in the snow with my backpack on, with my heels in there and my headshots. And then I'd get there and I'd be like, hi, I'm Rebecca Mader and I'm reading for the role. Oh my God, my face is frozen. And I couldn't, and I'm like, I'm going to have to, once I actually had to go back out and I'm like trying to like put a hot coffee on my face. Like I looked like I had Botox in my cheeks.
Right, yeah.
I was literally frozen from the sad Oliver Twist walk to my audition. Like, there's got to be more than this, surely, God.
Those are real moments that, obviously shape and bring you to where you are now. I know that like Hollywood promotes like psychics and you see a psychic on every corner.
Hold on, where's my crystal?
Right. Like I came out here as a psychic on every corner.
Everyone's
like,
spiritual.
Right.
In LA.
Spiritual, right. Has that ever been something that you dabbled into, like seeing a psychic or anything?
Oh, I've tried everything. I've been here for a long time. I've been here for 18 years. If there's something out there that I haven't tried, I'll be shocked.
Right.
I've seen everybody and I've tried all the things, but yeah, I've met some really funny characters out here, or even a couple of people that ended up being almost like charlatans,
Yeah.
They're like, oh, she's on a show. She's got some money. I know. I can make all your dreams come true. And you're like, but they're already happening. I don't need you. Like, what is happening?
Exactly.
How much are you?
Right.
Do you cure cancer? Like, why are you $100,000? Like, what is going on? So yeah, there's a lot of people out here preying on people, like you and me.
Oh yeah. We see it a lot. And that's why, like in one of, obviously the first episode, we actually have the psychic who's been a psychic to a lot of stars. She's coming in soon, and
there are legitimate, amazing psychics out there, though. Like it's not. I'm not saying I don't believe in it, because I've met some that you're like, you're definitely. I almost see it as like they've got a clearer channel to God. That's all.
Yeah, so it's going to be a very interesting episode because she speaks clearly on like where that comes from, and she breaks it down. And so I'm not going to say much, but she talks about that. If you won an award, right? When?
Hi.
Right.
When I win my first big award, yes, I'll thank you. Oh.
Right.
Oh my God, way to bring it back to you, dude.
Right. When you win your major
yes,
award.
I will thank you in my speech.
Right. Do you feel like you'll boldly be like, I want to thank God? And if you do thank God, would you throw Jesus' name in there, or would you? I asked my friend that question, and he gave a very interesting answer. And so, it's something that I've even thought about before, because when I watch award shows, and I came into this industry like saying to myself, like, man, when I get that stage, when God, you put me on that stage, this is how my speech is going to go, right? And so, is that something you've thought about, or like? Or
Who was it recent? Oh my God, loads.
Yeah.
I've thought about it a million times. But there was someone, who was it recently? Oh God, I'm going to be really annoyed that I forget this now, but someone got up recently and said, I'd like to thank me. And I was like, everybody died laughing.
right.
Because no one ever thanks themselves, but it's like, what a good point though. Like it was you at the end of the day that got up, you know. But I think I would thank God first, and then I would thank myself, and then I would thank the supporting players.
Yeah, for
because at the
sure.
end of the day, we are all the leading person in the movie of our lives.
Yeah.
But you've also got some help
For
from
sure.
up there, and it's, you know, it's trusting that has allowed it to happen. I don't think I would say Jesus, but I do think I would say I would like to thank God. And I think everybody, unless, well, they've heard this, well, now they're going to hear this podcast, they go, oh, well, that makes sense. That's Rebecca Mader.
Yeah.
I just not something I particularly talked about.
For sure.
You know,
Yeah.
but I think in this next chapter of my life, in this next chapter of my career, I want to be more honest. And it's
Yeah.
not that I've been dishonest. I think I've just held things back a little bit, and I've only given 40% of the truth of who I am. And I really want to fully express that. You know, I'm not saying everybody's so interested they need to know all of me, but I think just with everything that's available now in terms of social media and podcasts and things like that,
Yeah.
and what resonates with me the most is when people are 1000% themselves and authentic. And that is who I am when I come across people in wherever I am, whether I'm getting my Starbucks, I'm best friends with the barista by the time I leave. So I just kind of want to express more of who I am and what I believe in and how I move through the world while I'm here, because, you know, time is not guaranteed.
For sure. No, and it's amazing, and you know, and not you know, speaking less of the industry, it's like going through just anything in the arts and entertainment business. You spend so much time not being yourself, so you can lose connection to, like, you know, God and the source. And you know, like I've had that period where I was in the industry and I just felt so like lukewarm, you know, in terms of like faith. And it was when I got connected back to my faith that I just felt like, okay, I'm gaining more control. It was a role that I got offered, and it was a pretty good role, and it was to play
A witch?
not a witch. You know, I had to play. It was like to play a gay character, and I prayed on it, and I had to turn it down. Not because it's, you know, it just, with my faith, it wasn't something that I just felt like was good for me.
Yeah. You got to do what feels right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, who are you doing this for?
Yeah.
I've had so many opportunities come my way, like, you know, prostitute and I'm like, well, yeah, there's obviously people need to make a living, but like, that just doesn't feel right. Or like there's, you know, or like I'll get something, especially since I've become a mum, like you get things and you're like, oh God. Because then I'm
Right.
thinking in terms of how can this be used to bully my kids at school?
Yeah.
How many gifs or like if I show any partial nudity and things like that, that's going to be a gif and a meme on repeat in perpetuity in my timeline. I don't want to see it.
Yeah.
It's not my brand. It's not my vibe. I don't need to go there for them. You got to do what feels right in your heart. So I turn stuff down like that too, where I'm thinking, I don't need my son seeing that with his friends making fun of him on the van. Look what your mum did. Like,
Absolutely.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, no, that's definitely important.
Good for you though, because it's really brave. And it's really hard to say no.
Yes.
Because you feel like as an actor, you got to like take all the scraps that come your way and like, oh, if it's come
absolutely.
my way, then I should do it. Well, no, not necessarily. Sometimes it's the roles that you don't take that end up really shaping your journey.
It really does. And like you were at 500. I think I was at like negative 50 in my account when that opportunity came.
Well, that's a tough decision.
And I just remember, like, I was just like, all right, God, like, what's going on? Like, why now? And why this role? And it's been a decision that I've been just thankful that I've made, you know. And so I've realized that just like kind of just walking on this journey of being in the industry, it's like, if there's no connection to God, then like you can really like just lose yourself, you know? And there's that moment where you felt like your back was against the wall, and you know, it was a great moment because you had to pray it out, right? Where we know in Hollywood, there's so many other things you could do, right? You could become stressed, just drink, you know.
Smoke it out.
You can smoke it out, right? Right. And you know that we could definitely do that in
I
LA.
think this role work.
Right. You know? And so it's always
Making a different choice.
yeah, it's always just, you know, making a different choice. Now, who is the real Rebecca? You know what I'm saying?
That's the real thing. And I think that's kind of what I'm going through right now is I know who I am, but I don't think, not like the world, like, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I think people don't really know who I am, and that's on me, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, well, I really want to share my true personality and my beliefs with the people that already follow me or people that don't know who I am, because then I feel like I will be living the career that God had intended for me. And I think there's been in some way, I've been kind of like holding my back or editing myself a little bit. So really this next moment for me is about exactly what you're asking, like, or talking about, like, how do I bring this? And that's one of the reasons why I'm so glad that I'm sitting here today, because in this moment, I'm totally relaxed, I'm totally chill,
Yeah.
I'm totally being myself, I'm being funny and normal and real and grounded. And I just think people just don't really know who I am yet. And I think being a guest on wonderful new podcasts like this is something that I prayed about. I was like, okay, Father, people keep telling me you should do a podcast. I don't even know what that looks like or how I would even make that happen. But in the meantime, for me to learn even what that is or how that looks, maybe you could bring some opportunities my way where people might invite me to be on them. I literally just had this whole prayer.
Yeah.
And
Amazing.
then all of a sudden I see Heather Donahue doing hers and I'm like, oh, I miss her. I love her. I'll reach out. And then I did. And then I watched yours. And then you said you want to be on it and went,
Yeah. Look at God. And now you're on Faithful Heights, and that's amazing.
yeah.
And I'm so honored to have you, and that's just like a blessing. What's your like your plan going forward? Do you feel like, I know I'm trying to like convince you to start a podcast. 'Cause you're super,
I would
you're
love to
super
start
funny.
a podcast.
I think you'd
I would
be
love
like
to start
amazing.
a podcast. Yes, please. I
yeah.
definitely want to do it.
Yeah, I think you'd be like super. Like Rebecca came in here and she's like, we've just been laughing. We almost didn't start the podcast because she just had us rolling, by the way. And so like, just for future plans for roles, are there any shows or anything you're working on now? Or that?
No. Mummy is ready to go back to work. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I'm ready to go back to work. So now I'm just auditioning.
Right.
You know, I just lost all the baby weight and I just really feel like I'm me again. You know, you lose yourself a little bit when you become a mum, you know, or a parent, whatever. You get so entrenched in that, you know, people are like, hey, did you get my email? And I'm like, is this the face of somebody that looks like they just got an email?
Right.
I've got poo in my hair. I don't know what's going on. My phone has been attacked by dinosaurs. Like you disappear a little bit in the trenches of it. So now I'm coming out, I'm in my groove, and I'm rediscovering who I am now as a person, as a mum, and also as an actress, as a mum. Who am I now, and what do I really, really want?
Yeah.
You know, like I don't want to be on set 24/7 and never see my kids, you know, but I do want to be back on set, you know, and I think a good transition into whatever that is, or creating my own show or creating my content, I think doing a really fun podcast where I get to be myself is part of kind of the natural order of things. So this is even just, you know, meeting you and being here is all part of it. And when I was on Once Upon a Time, I was sharing this with you when we spoke on the phone the other day, but, you know, we did a lot and still do a lot of amazing Comic-Cons, you know, and conventions where we meet fans, which has been such a massive blessing. And I've met so many wicked people. I genuinely have really beautiful, meaningful relationships with so many of these fans of the show that I know these people and I've watched them grow up. They were kids and now they've got jobs or have had kids and married or pursuing their dreams. And it means so much to me, you know, and like sometimes I'll see someone like, do you remember when you said I should not listen to my dad and I should get that apartment and I should go to nursing school and, you know, and I'm thinking, I don't remember saying that, you know, and it was in 2014 and I'm like, did I? What great advice. And she's like, well, I did it. And now I'm a nurse and I still have a relationship with my dad because you said he's not the enemy. And it blows my mind and I get so emotional. You know, like I'm not like preaching about myself, but it's like to find out that you've spoken into someone's life with love and your heart and it has genuinely made a positive impact and difference. I wouldn't have known that if not for conventions.
Yeah.
So conventions really make it real and you understand the connection between like you do what you do and the real impact that your character or the writing or your performance has had on an individual person. truly has like profound meaning to me, you know, and I love doing them. And one of the things I love the most, besides obviously the fans, in doing these conventions was moments that are similar to this, in that a lot of these conventions do panels, right?
Yeah.
And Q&As, and that's where you get to talk to the fans or tell a story. And then over time, I've sort of realized that I actually enjoy being myself more than I do playing somebody else. And I think a lot of actors like getting lost in a role and being this weird or completely different person. But I really enjoy being myself. So if I can figure out how to kind of incorporate that more into my career, I think that would be really fun for me.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I feel like it'd be like so organic and just easy for you. I feel like God has given you that, and like you said, you know, you've played completely opposite roles. When we go back to like scriptures and like Bible, have you picked up like the Bible and have read Bible, or is it something you just
not for a long time, between you and me and everybody watching? Oh my God, are we rolling? Right. Yes. I haven't picked up the Bible for a long time. I own a Bible and I own books about the Bible and about all kinds of different stuff, but I haven't physically picked one up for a long time. I've been through phases where I've like had it part of my morning practice. For sure. But really my main spiritual practice at the moment is really just listening to amazing praise and worship.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And when I'm home alone, I put it on my Alexa Everywhere group, and the whole house is like, church. Yeah. You know? But I haven't picked up the Bible for a long time.
Okay, yeah. No, I mean, I've gone through my phases, but praise and worship has been very important to kind of just leading me. At a time where I was going through like dark time, everyone's like, go to a therapist, and you know, I was talking about it with like Joseph last time, like, but no one was like really telling me like to go to God, right? No one was really like pray on it. And then I started thinking about it, and I was just like listening to like praise and worship, and then I was like, you know, like the Holy Spirit was like, no, come to me, and I started praying, and I just started feeling so much better, and it got me like out of like my dark times, you know, and so, you know, it was just a reminder that like, all right, like we don't have to put our trust in men, like we can just go to God, like the Creator who created us, you know, and so like the foundation and now the responsibilities of being a mother, is that something that you keep in your mind, like, okay, I gotta teach my children about God, or like like how do you incorporate that, or with so much going on and being a mother?
Honestly, it's like a conversation that I was thinking I need to have soon, because now they're like proper little people. Yeah. Like, what do I want that to be, and what do I want that to look like? And then I also have to factor in another adult's opinion and views on that, right?
Yeah.
So it's a conversation that I'm looking to have soon with my husband. Like, how do we want to do this? Yeah. Obviously, you would think that you would have that before they were born, but then time gets in the way, and then all of a sudden you've got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. You know, I think it's really about finding the right church too. You know, and like finding something that is a good fit for our family. But I do want them to have a relationship with God, and then you don't feel so alone in the world. You know, if you can just trust that there is a divine order to things, that there's a reason that we're here, and why did we come here, and just to really like make them see that we came here to learn lessons, but to also spread God's love and light. We are a vessel, right? And I really believe that, and I try to lead by example in the, you know, wherever I go. I feel like my job is to be a blessing to other people. And, you know, I didn't even know that I did this. My mum actually brought it to my attention in New York in 2012, right before Hurricane Sandy. We were in Old Navy, and there was this woman at the till, the register, and I bought a bunch of stuff over. I love Old Navy. And I was buying loads of stuff, and I could see she was having a bit of a rubbish day. And I'm like, challenge accepted. Yeah. Like, that's how I always am with people that look like they're not having a good time. And by the end, she was like, you made my day. Oh, Rebecca, come back tomorrow. And I'm like dancing as I'm leaving. That's how I leave a store. Like, you know. And my mum went, I love that you do that. And I'm like, what, buy clothes? And she went, no, I just sat there. She was sitting in the window on Broadway in Soho in New York. She's like, I just watched the whole interaction. She was miserable. You did your thing, and she had a twinkle in her eye, and you changed her mood. You changed her day. Yeah. That's what you do. And I didn't even know it was like my shtick or like my thing that I did, that I'm able to kind of turn it around for people and let's remind them that we're all here to
Absolutely.
feel the blessing of while we're here, period, you know? And I just always see that as my mission. Like, how do I do that? And I try to instill that in my kids, you know, I'm like, just be kind, you know? And I ask them when I pick them up from school, like, who are you kind to today?
Yeah.
Not like, how was your day? What did you learn?
Right.
Who are you kind to?
That's amazing. It's a really, really like great question to ask your kids.
Who were you kind to today? Or not who was kind to you, who were you kind to?
Right, exactly.
Did you help anybody with a chair? Did you bring anyone a different crayon? Did you open the gate?
Yeah.
Did you tell them when someone was mean to them? Did you go and get teacher? Like, how are you making a difference? How are you being a good person? You know, how are you adding a positive thing to the situation?
And so speaking on like, you know, from you on down to your kids, how was it growing up? Was like your family and faith, and was it like it was lack of faith?
It was really good soul music, though.
Got you.
My dad only listens to R&B, soul, funk, and jazz. He will not listen to anything by a white person. So I thought that's just what music was. I didn't think there was anything else other than Alexander O'Neill and, you know, Aretha Franklin and Luther Vandross. My first pet was called Luther Van Hamster.
That's funny.
So I didn't like any white music growing up. So I grew up in a very soulful / accidentally white household that was church, was listening to gospel music. But I didn't even really understand what it was because I didn't go to church, you know.
Right.
But no, really just about, I mean, my parents are obviously very good people, you know, they just don't believe in God.
Yeah.
Neither does my sister. No one in my family believes in God.
Yeah. Do you find that to be kind of just a tougher situation to navigate, or the reason why maybe it's something that you just haven't really spoken about?
No, I just don't really talk about it.
You just don't really talk about it.
I don't even really talk about it with my husband, if I'm being completely honest. And he's probably not even going to listen to my podcast.
I mean, how?
You know? It's weird. It's like, am I living a dirty secret? Like, what am I doing? Why am I not like sharing this?
How blessed are we to have Rebecca first time talking about this on the Faithful Hype podcast? Like,
yes.
Like, how blessed are we? Like, God is moving.
Breaking news.
Right. God is moving. Her next role, she's going to play like a pastor or something.
Totally.
Like, God is going to do that. Wow. She's going to, but no, that's amazing. And it's just, I'm just beyond like thankful to have you on Faithful Heights talking about this, because there's so many things that we could be talking about, right? And you know, I could even tell when we were talking on the phone that, like, you know, the desire to just be Rebecca, right? And just show people who, like, this is who God has made, right? God has made Rebecca, not the witch, right? And who does that well. But people will start to like see you as that and not really get to see you as like Rebecca and who you are, and just hilarious and funny, and, you know, just God, loving God. And so how do you, with your platform, how do you express or promote your faith or goodness, right? And is it something that you feel like you can do more of on like your Instagram? Or, you know, you talked about the moment like when you're at the store, right? And that's just like, you know, just you being you, but like with your platform, like how do you feel like you can express or promote, you know, like your faith?
That's definitely what I feel like this next chapter is supposed to be for me, is about really being myself and sharing my beliefs. I've never really done it. It's crazy, you know, and I've been looking for an avenue for it. So I'm very grateful that God brought you into my life so that we could have this conversation, because it feels like the beginning of whatever this next chapter is supposed to be. And I don't ever want to be preachy, but I'm happy to lead by example. You know, I've worked so hard on myself, you know, and I want to share it, you know. And I think what I've really only ever done in the up until this point is having like meaningful, authentic conversations during panels. You know, which is why I think I've garnered such a beautiful relationship with so many beautiful people, is because I've been this all along. It's just not public, right? Those Comic-Cons, some people are making some videos on their iPhone, but they're not being broadcast on national television. You know what I'm saying? So it's about how do I figure out a way to really bring this to the table. And I think you're right. I think I need to do a podcast to have these types of conversations and really share what I've learned and what I'm going to continue to learn, because I want to continue to learn and grow my faith until it's time for me to move on. With whatever time I've got left, I want to use it in such an important way, in a useful way, and not just sit here and go, oh, I'm just an actress that books some jobs until I drop down dead. That's not why I'm here. Absolutely. I have a bigger purpose.
I'm really so thankful for like this, and I'm excited to see this next chapter of your life. And I'm excited for even the potential podcast, because listen, drop a like. You heard
it here first.
Drop a comment. Like, we want her to start her own podcast. You've heard of her here first. Rebecca Mader. I'm going to drop your Instagram. What's your Instagram?
@Bex Mader.
@Bex Mader. @Bex Mader.
In it though.
In it. I love it. Here you have it, another episode of Faithful Heights. I am Yinka Ade, and we're just going to continuously give you just a lot more great episodes, a lot more wonderful guests to come.
Thank you so much for having me. You're amazing.
Absolutely. It's been such a pleasure. And we'll see you again. And you'll see Rebecca on a lot more shows. And I got a feeling God is going to start doing some amazing things, like, and reversing the roles that she has, just to show her, like, and so when you get that first major role that's outside of what you usually play.
Nice.
Yeah, you have to call me first and let me know.
I will.
All right.
Promise.
Yeah, so thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Absolutely.